The plate slipped from Leela's hand and shattered against the diner floor. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Every head turned. But Daniel didn't flinch. He couldn't, because standing right in front of him, holding a notepad with trembling fingers, was the woman he had spent 5 years trying to forget. Leela, his ex-wife, the same woman he walked away from without looking back. Only now she looked like life had taken everything from her and asked for more. Her hair was tied back loosely, strands falling across her face. Her uniform looked worn, slightly oversized, like it had been washed too many times, but that was what shook him. It was her belly. Round, heavy, unmistakable. She was pregnant. Very pregnant. And suddenly, Daniel couldn't breathe. Rain hammered against the diner windows. Thunder rolled in the distance. But inside, time slowed into something thick and suffocating. "Sir, what would you like to order?" Her voice was calm. Too calm. Like he was just another customer. Like they hadn't once shared a home, a bed, a life. Daniel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Across from him, Mia swung her legs under the table, oblivious to the storm unfolding in silence. "Daddy, why is she looking at you like that?" The question hit harder than anything else. Leela's eyes flickered. Just for a second. Then she looked away. "I'll give you a moment," she said quietly. And turned. But Daniel saw it. The way she winced as she walked. The slight pause in her step. The way her hand instinctively pressed against her back. She was in pain. And still working. Still serving strangers. Still pretending everything was fine. Something inside him cracked. Because 5 years ago, he told himself she would be okay without him. He had convinced himself she was strong. Independent. Better off. But this wasn't strength. This was survival. And it didn't look like it had been kind to her. "Daddy, do you know her?" Mia's voice pulled him back. Daniel swallowed hard. "I used to." He didn't know how else to say it. Because how do you explain to a 6-year-old that the woman carrying another man's child used to be your whole world? Or worse, that you might have been the reason her life fell apart? Leela returned with water. Set the glasses down gently. Avoided his eyes. But then something strange happened. She placed a small paper napkin near Mia's plate. Folded into a tiny heart. Mia's face lit up instantly. "Wow, did you make this?" Leela smiled softly. A real smile this time. "Yeah. Thank you." And just like that, something shifted. Daniel noticed it. Because that wasn't just a random gesture. It was careful. Intentional. Kind. But why? Why would she still be like this, after everything? Before he could think further. "Leela, table 6 is waiting." A harsh voice cut through the moment. A man stood behind the counter. Thick arms, cold expression. Watching her like she was already doing something wrong. "I'm coming," she said quickly. She moved fast. Too fast. Her hand brushed the edge of the table. And she almost lost her balance. Daniel stood up instinctively. Careful. But she steadied herself before he could reach her. And for a brief second, their eyes locked. There was something there. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just distance. Like he had become a stranger. And maybe he had. She pulled away immediately. Went back to work. And Daniel sat back down, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Guilt. Heavy, sharp, unavoidable. Because the truth was slowly sinking in. She hadn't just moved on. She had struggled. Alone. And somehow he had missed all of it. Mia tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, she's nice." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah." But his mind was somewhere else. Because one question kept echoing louder than everything else. Whose child is she carrying? And why does it feel like the answer might destroy everything he thought he knew? Before we go deeper into this story, I just want to say, stories like this take time, heart, and a lot of emotion to bring to life. If you feel something already, consider subscribing. It really means more than you think. Because this story, it's only just beginning. Now tell me, from this moment alone, what do you think is really going on here? 5 years earlier, Daniel Cole wasn't a bad man, but he was a broken one. Bills stacked higher than hope, arguments that never seemed to end, and a marriage that felt like it was slowly suffocating him. Leela had always been strong, stronger than him if he was honest. She believed in pushing through, in fixing things, in holding on. But Daniel, he was tired. Every conversation turned into a fight. Every problem turned into blame. "You don't understand what I'm going through," he had shouted one night. "And you think I do," Leela fired back. "I'm trying, Daniel." "It's not enough." The words hung in the air like something irreversible. Because deep down, he didn't mean them. But he said them anyway. And that was the problem. They stopped listening, stopped understanding, stopped being a team. Until one day, Daniel packed a bag. "I can't do this anymore," he said. Leela stood frozen, tears in her eyes. But she didn't beg, didn't stop him. "Then go." Those two words stayed with him for years. Cold, final. But what Daniel didn't know, what he never even imagined, was that just hours before that moment, Leela had been sitting alone in a bathroom, holding a pregnancy test, staring at two faint pink lines, her hands shaking, her heart racing. She had wanted to tell him, planned to tell him, but by the time she found the courage, he was already gone. Phone disconnected, apartment empty, like he had erased himself from her life overnight. At first she waited, then she hoped, then she stopped, because pride is a powerful thing. And pain, even more so. If he can walk away that easily, then I don't need him. That's what she told herself, over and over, until it felt real. So she kept the secret, raised the child alone, worked multiple jobs, struggled in silence, because asking for help would mean admitting she couldn't do it. And Leela refused to break. But life had its own plans. Because 2 years later, everything changed again. Daniel had met someone new, a quiet woman named Rachel. She was kind, gentle, the opposite of chaos. And for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. When Mia was born, it felt like a second chance, a chance to do things right, to be better. And he tried. He really did. But fate wasn't done with him, because Rachel died shortly after childbirth. And just like that, Daniel became a single father, left to raise a baby on his own, left to face the same loneliness he once ran from. Except now, there was no one to blame, no one to argue with, no one to leave. Just him, and a tiny life depending on him. That was when he changed. Slowly, painfully, but completely. He worked harder, stayed home more, learned patience, learned sacrifice. because Mia deserved it, because he had already failed once, and he refused to fail again. But here's the part that makes everything complicated. Daniel believed Leela had moved on too. He told himself she probably found someone better, someone who stayed, someone who didn't run. And maybe he wanted to believe that, because the alternative was too painful to face, that she might have needed him, and he wasn't there. Back in the diner, Daniel watched Leela move from table to table, every step careful, every smile forced. And suddenly, that past didn't feel distant anymore. It felt unfinished, because something wasn't adding up. If she had moved on, why did she look like she was still fighting to survive? And if she had, then what had those 5 years really been like for her? Mia leaned closer. "Daddy, can we come here again?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes still on Leela. Maybe. But inside, he had already made a decision. He wasn't walking away this time. Not without answers. The next day, Daniel came back. Not by accident. Not by coincidence. On purpose. Mia noticed immediately. "Daddy, this is the same place." Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, I liked it." But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, he needed to see her again. Needed to understand. Needed to figure out why something felt so off. Leela noticed him the second he walked in. But this time, her reaction was different. There was tension, a flicker of discomfort, almost fear. And that made everything worse. Because why would she be afraid of him? "Table for two?" she asked. Formal, distant, like yesterday meant nothing. Daniel nodded. They sat. Silence stretched between them again. Until finally, "How long have you been working here?" he asked. Leela didn't look at him. "A while." "That doesn't answer the question." She sighed softly. "Why are you here, Daniel?" There it was. No more pretending. No small talk. "I don't have time for this." Her voice was sharper now. But there was something underneath it. Exhaustion. "Leela, You left." The words cut through everything. "I didn't ask for explanations then. I'm not asking now." Daniel swallowed. "I know, but things are different." "Are they?" She finally looked at him. And this time, there was anger. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're doing just fine." Daniel flinched. "You don't know anything about my life. And you don't know anything about mine." Silence again. Heavy, uncomfortable, but real. Before he could respond, "Lila." The manager's voice again. "You're falling behind." "I'm coming." She turned quickly. But Daniel saw it. Her hand shaking slightly. Her breathing uneven. Something wasn't right. And then it happened. A customer at another table snapped. "Hey, we've been waiting forever." "I'm sorry, Sorry doesn't pay the bill." The manager stepped in. "I apologize, sir. It won't happen again." Then he turned to Leela. Cold. Sharp. "Back now." Daniel's jaw tightened. Because this wasn't just pressure. This was humiliation. And Leela took it. Without arguing. Without defending herself. Why? Why would she accept that? Unless she had no choice. Later, Daniel noticed something else. When the bill came, there was a discount. Small, subtle, but intentional. He hadn't asked for it. Mia hadn't noticed. But he did. And suddenly, that napkin heart from yesterday didn't feel random anymore. It felt like a pattern. Like Leela was still, quietly helping others, even when she had nothing. And that made everything even harder to understand. Because if she was capable of this kind of kindness, what had really happened between them? That night, Daniel couldn't sleep, because one thought wouldn't leave him alone. What if he didn't just leave his wife? What if he abandoned something more? Tell me, do you think people going through hard times should be judged or understood? Because Daniel was about to stop judging and start digging for the truth. It started with a simple question. Do you know Layla? Daniel asked one of the kitchen staff quietly. The man hesitated. Why? I'm just asking. A pause. Then, she's a good person. That wasn't what Daniel expected. She works too hard, never complains, helps everyone. Helps everyone. Even now. Even like this. Does she have family? The man shook his head. Just her son. Daniel froze. Her son. Yeah, kid's about 5, I think. Everything inside him went still. 5 years old. The math hit him like a punch to the chest. No, it couldn't be. Could it? Before he could think. Daniel. Leela's voice. Behind him. Sharp. Controlled. What are you doing? He turned slowly. I didn't know you had a child. Her expression changed instantly. Walls went up. That's none of your business. Leela, how old is he? Silence. Dangerous silence. Then, 5. The world tilted. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The exhaustion. The struggle. The silence. You were pregnant when I left. Her eyes filled with something raw. You don't get to ask me that. Is he mine? The question hung between them. Heavy. Unavoidable. And then, Leela broke. Yes. The word shattered something deep inside him. Yes, Daniel, he's yours. The air left his lungs. Because in that moment, every excuse he ever made collapsed. He hadn't just left a marriage. He had left his child. And he didn't even know. I tried to tell you, she whispered. But you were already gone. Tears streamed down her face now. Anger. Pain. Years of it. I didn't want to chase someone who didn't want to stay. Daniel stepped back. Staggered. Because there was no defense for this. No justification. Only truth. And it was brutal. I raised him alone, she continued. Worked every job I could, slept maybe 3 hours a night. Her voice broke. But I never regretted keeping him. Daniel's chest tightened. Where is he now? At home with a neighbor. Another contraction hit her suddenly. She gasped. Gripped the counter. Daniel rushed forward. Leela. I'm fine. But she was. Not even close. Your due date. Next week. But the way she winced said otherwise. This wasn't normal. This was early. Dangerous. And then, she collapsed. The entire diner froze. Call an ambulance, someone shouted. Daniel caught her before she hit the ground. Her body trembling. Breathing uneven. I can't, not now, she whispered. And for the first time, Daniel felt true fear. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. Because this wasn't about the past anymore. This was about life. And it was slipping. The hospital lights were too bright. Too cold. Daniel paced the hallway. Mia sat quietly beside him. Confused. Worried. Daddy, is she going to be okay? He didn't answer right away. Because he didn't know. And that terrified him. She has to be, he finally said. Because anything else wasn't an option. Hours passed. Every second heavier than the last. Until finally, a doctor stepped out. Are you family? Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. And for the first time, it felt true. She's stable, but there were complications. His heart pounded. The baby. A pause. Then, the baby is okay. Relief crashed over him. So strong it almost brought him to his knees. But she'll need support. Recovery won't be easy. Daniel nodded. I'll be there. And this time, he meant it. No running. No excuses. No disappearing. When Leela woke up, he was there, sitting beside her, waiting. I'm not leaving, he said softly. She looked at him, tired, guarded. Why now? Because I should have stayed then. But instead, he said, because you shouldn't have had to do this alone. Tears filled her eyes again. But this time, they weren't just pain. They were something else. Something fragile. Hope. Weeks later, everything changed. Daniel stepped into Leela's small apartment. Met his son, a quiet little boy with curious eyes. So much like his. And in that moment, he made a silent promise. To both of them. He would earn this. Not expect it. Not demand it. Earn it. He helped. Stayed. Showed up. Day after day. And slowly, very slowly, walls came down. Not all at once, but enough. Until one day, Leela smiled at him again. A real smile. And this time, it stayed. Because sometimes, kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. So tell me, do you believe one act of kindness can truly change someone's life forever? Because for Daniel, it did. If this story touched you in any way, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Because stories like this remind us of something important. People aren't always what they seem. And sometimes, the second chance we're afraid to take is the one that changes everything.